class. Welcome back to the History of Christianity. Today we are going to be looking at some new religions that came on scene, such as Christian Science and Jehovah's Witness.
Okay, class, we're now going to have the PowerPoint portion of this lecture on new religions. So, introduction. Some religious movements of the 19th century were so different than Orthodox Christianity that they were viewed as a different religion. They weren't even viewed as Christian. They were just viewed completely as a different religion. And three main religions arose, which we'll talk about here in this PowerPoint. Number one, Mormonism. Number two, Jehovah's Witnesses. And number three, Church of Christ Scientist, or Christian Science. Okay, so we'll just go down these briefly. Mormonism, also called Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith founded it. He is there on the right in that kind of blurry picture. 1805 to 1844. He was born to poor parents. They lived in a rural setting, and they were in Vermont, and they moved over to New York. Well, when he was living, it was in western New York. When he was living there, he claimed that he had a vision from an angel called Moroni, is this name of this angel that he had this vision from. Well, Moroni gave him golden tablets, which were written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. And Smith translated the tablets from behind a curtain, and it was written down by scribes on the other side of the curtain. And this manuscript that was dictated and written down was published as the Book of Mormon in 1830. And the Book of Mormon is also called Another New Testament of Jesus Christ. It talks about all of the Jesus's visiting activities when he visited the New World, and he visited the ancient indigenous peoples of the Americas. There's battles. There's all kinds. Just all of Joseph Smith's ideas and stories are put in the Book of Mormon, and I have a copy of it. I've read some of it. It's kind of out there. But once published, he did gain many followers. Now, when people hear the words ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, that may come, well, maybe that's from Egypt or something like that. But the thing is that there is no such language as ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. People that study language, theologians, there's no such thing as that language. So they're not sure what these tablets supposedly said, but that language doesn't exist. So they travel west. New visions led Joseph Smith to take his followers with him to the west. And so they first went to Ohio, and that didn't work out. Then they go to Illinois. In Illinois, the local community really distrusted Joseph Smith. They didn't like this group coming in. They didn't like him there. And what he did was, after he declared himself as candidate for president of the United States, a group of locals and kind of like an angry mob, they actually killed Smith. So Joseph Smith is dead. Now their new leader, Brigham Young, he said, we need to get out of here. So he takes the group and they move to Utah, and it becomes this Mormon, almost like utopia, but they established way out there. And at the time, that was way out west. There was like nobody out there. They settle in Utah, and that established community is still there today. It's a strong influence in Utah today. This is in Salt Lake City, Utah today, and this is the Mormon Temple. It's just gigantic. You can just see, the reason I have it with the city there is to see the size of how big this temple is. It's still there today, and they still do all their services there in Salt Lake City. And there's Mormon temples around the country. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is Jehovah's Witnesses, founded by Charles Taze Russell. There he is on the right, in 1852 to 1916. It was founded in 1870. He studied the Bible to discover hidden clues for the future. And in his study, he declared that there were three great instruments of Satan. The instruments of Satan were the government, business, and the church. He rejected the Trinity and the divinity of Jesus. And he found, I guess, in the clues of the Bible, he said that the second coming had already taken place. and that the end of the world would be in 1914. Well, World War I started in 1914, but it was not the end of the world, and he ended up dying in 1916. Joseph Rutherford took over after Russell. He named the movement the Jehovah's Witnesses in 1931, and there was a focus on missionary movement to spread the Jehovah's Witness message. Okay, we're not going to get into the details of what they believe. It's just not. We don't need to do that for our purposes here. But today, very popular. They have a big campaign push right now with the internet, and their new website's just called jw.org, and they have big billboards and everything along highways. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they a lot of times they go to popular destinations for cruise ships, and they'll set up little stands. So as soon as tourists on cruise ships, as soon as they stop at a port and get off the boat to go see the sights of the local area, they're going to be confronted by Jehovah's Witnesses right there on the dock. So Jehovah's Witnesses are spreading around. Very popular. They meet in windowless kingdom halls. The actual meeting place of the hall has no windows in it. The Watchtower magazine is produced. It was produced from Russell. He was produced at first, and it continued all the way to today. And this is how the Jehovah's Witnesses distribute their theology and new revelations from the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so this magazine comes out to all the kingdom halls and all the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it gives them the theology, and basically new revelation is given. And here on the screen, this is the Watchtower building in Brooklyn, New York. I've been right outside that building myself, personally. And so you see Manhattan in the background, and then the Brooklyn Bridge. And when you come off the Brooklyn Bridge, there's an exit to the right, and there's the gigantic Watchtower building. And that is where the Watchtower magazine was produced for many, many, many years. And so you see it says Watchtower right there on the building, and then this sign here, it's facing the water. It lights up, and it faces Manhattan, and it says Watchtower, and you can see it there. But this building is no longer used. It was sold, and I believe it turned into apartment complexes. Okay, so then we're going to move to our last one, the Church of Christ Scientist or Christian Science. Before we go into this little portion, I do want to make a clarification that this is not the same as Scientology. Church of Christ Scientist or Christian Science is not the same as Scientology. Scientology was founded by a different person named Hubbard, and a lot of the movie stars, probably the most famous one is Tom Cruise. He's a Scientologist, completely different, founded later on. It is not Christian Science. So don't confuse Christian Science with Scientology. Christian Science was founded by Mary Baker Eddy. She was born 1821, died in 1910. She was a very sickly youth, suffered from many illnesses, and in her adult life she had chronic pain, and she was addicted to morphine. She used a ton of morphine. Well, she went to Phineas P. Quimby, who was a clockmaker and a mesmerist, and he basically said her sicknesses were not real and that she was just in error and that she needed to find the truth to be healed. Well, later, Eddy fell in Lynn, Massachusetts. She slipped on some ice and fell, and she hit her head, and everyone thought she was about to die. Well, suddenly she has this miraculous healing that takes place, and she has an awakening, and she said that she had a perception of God. And so from this event, she basically had the idea to birth this new religion, which was called Christian Science. And we will talk, just to understand Christian Science a little better, we will talk about some of their belief here just in a minute. She founded the Mother Church in Boston, Massachusetts, which is still there today. There she is on the left in 1864, Mary Baker Eddy. And on the right is the Mother Church in Boston. Now, you can see it's a very large building. I mean, here's people down here in the cars. When it was founded, and built, this was the only portion of the church. This was, like Mary Baker Eddy, this was her church, the mother church. But today it's this entire thing. It really expanded because Christian Scientists expanded. Okay, so just briefly with her the beliefs, just to get an idea, because the belief comes from what we talked about many PowerPoints ago with the early church. In general, the material world is not real. It's imaginary or at minimum of second importance. And the purpose of life is to live in harmony with this, what she called a universal spirit. Scripture is interpreted to give spiritual clues, which is unknown to most Christians. Only the Christian Scientists can reveal these clues. So, and these clues will help somebody to be able to live in harmony with that universal spirit. So most terms such as God, Jesus, salvation, Trinity, etc., most of these theological terms are terms that we use in Orthodox Christianity. They're used in a spiritual sense and not in the Orthodox belief. So it's not like they take the things from the Scripture and it's twisted to have this other meaning instead of what we would believe as the truth of the Bible. So basically what it is, it's a combination of Gnosticism, so that's that you have to have a kind of like a special knowledge out there, and spiritualism, and this idea that there's this other world. The material world is not real. There's this other world, a spiritual world, and that's where you're going to be able to have this universal communion with this universal spirit. She said that illness is mental error and must use the science that Jesus used by healing with truth. And so again, just complete twisting of all of this. I'm not sure exactly what that even means, but basically Jesus healed with truth, and that's the science that Jesus healed. So you need to find this truth to defeat the mental error, which will get rid of your illness. And so because that's the case, they rejected the use of medicine and doctors, and that's still today. There are no pastors in Christian Science. What they're called practitioners. There's no preaching, so there's not like they join up at a church and they preach. Basically what it is, it's reading of selected Eddy writings, so Mary Baker Eddy's writings, it's selections of those as commentary to biblical passages. So these writings are put out where there's a biblical passage and then it'll be basically Mary Eddy Baker's thoughts or commentary on that passage. And today there's Christian Science reading rooms where it's Christian scientists can come together and do these readings. And that's going to be it for our new religions. They're just a real brief look, but I just wanted to bring those up because they are false religions that do draw people away from the church to them. They're out there evangelizing and trying to gain new adherents, and a lot of times it's a twisting of the Scripture, and many times people might not know, Christians might not know about these religions, and they might think it's just another denomination of Christianity. Like, well, Christian Science, well, it says Christian in the name, so it must be Christian, but it's not. Or Jehovah's Witness, well, Jehovah, that's God, so they must be witnesses for God. But when you look down at their actual beliefs and religions, it's completely false, and it's not even Christian. So I wanted to bring that up, bring this topic up for this class, so we kind of have an idea of these three big new religions that came up in the 19th century. Okay, I'll see you in a second.
The Christianity in Western Europe, especially during the 19th century, and we'll be looking at Charles Spurgeon, one of the great preachers. He was called the Prince of Preachers. So we'll be looking at that next time. Take care.